Hello everybody, welcome back to the second part of this series. In the first part I established a case for the category of classic percent for speedrunning the main quest in Elder Scrolls Online. And once I'd established what I thought were the fair parameters for that category, I went about deciding what build I was going to make for the speedrun. So this is basically leading you through the thought process that I had. So there are some things which I think are no-brainers, like you're going to want to do this for this particular category, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's other ways people could think outside the box and not include these, but anyway, you're going to want to maximize movement speed because there's more movement in this game, in this speedrun, than there is anything else. So you want to hit the cap, which is 100% of normal. So when you sprint, normally you get a certain boost, and that number can be doubled so that your character is literally twice as fast as any other that's not doing the same thing. And that just seems to me like, why wouldn't you do that? For that reason, you're going to want to be an orc, you're going to want to wear 7 pieces of medium armor, and my particular strategy here is going with Vampire Stage 4. There's 2 main advantages to that. One, it really helps with the use of stamina when sprinting. You can use it's like night and day difference. When you sprint as a Vampire Stage 4, it takes barely any stamina to run. You can run, and then fight at the end of it. Still have enough stamina to fight. And secondly, after 2 seconds, you go invisible, so you can skip huge numbers of encounters that you'd normally have if you weren't invisible. You can do this just by using a normal Nightblade invisibility, but A, you're going to have to use an ability, and B, for sheer speed, it just makes things simpler if you sprint for 2 seconds and then you're invisible until you stop sprinting. You'll also want to have swift jewelry, which means crafting or transmuting, and we'll come on to a selection of the sets in a moment, because maybe there's not so much no-brainers, there's some choice goes into those. And you're going to want to have a full stam character so that you have the biggest stam pool, so that you can sprint for as long as possible and still have enough resources at the end to fight. That doesn't mean to say I have no hybridization in my build. I do have some magic abilities, including a magicka spammable, but we'll get to that in just a second. As far as the planned elements are concerned, so I've gone for Nightblade to have a second source of invisibility. There will be some times when it's preferable to cloak rather than sprint. Also, they have concealed weapon, which gives an easy source of minor expedition. You just slot it and you have minor expedition, which applies even when you're stealthed, which is going to be really beneficial here. Excuse me. Adept Rider is a craftable set, which you can make in your guild's crafting hall, and the 5-piece bonus means that you have major expedition at all times. Now, you can get major expedition through loads of abilities and loads of other sources, but I just like the fact that it's on all the time. I don't have to do anything, and it means that, and also the set bonuses that go with it, the 2, 3 and 4 set piece bonuses are also pretty good. They support the overall strategy for the run. Now, I thought about Steed Mundus, and I came to the conclusion that you can go mathematically above the cap, but there's no bonus to doing so. So if you go Steed, you don't need to go 3 swift jewelry. You could maybe put Bloodthirsty on there instead, or Infused for more weapon damage. But the way in which the Divine Straight works, which is what you're going to want to have on your gear, it's kind of wasted with Steed. I believe, now this is, like I said, this is my choice. I believe that running 7-piece medium divines with a damage mundus like the thief, the lover, is going to result in more time saved because the combats are going to be faster than if you just had sheer movement speed. So being able to be even faster in between the combats is one thing, but then if you're like adding on 20-30 seconds per combat because you do it in less damage, you're going to lose that time again. Sticking within the bounds of the category, monster helm sets was an area where you really feel the difference between 80% and classic percent. So loads of things that you might want to have to maximize your damage and your burst, like the monster sets that proc, for example. A lot of those are not available without DLC, and you, even though you can stop having the DLC and still craft it because it's in your sticker book, you've had to had it at some point, which is kind of outside of the rules of that category. So starting with the base game monster sets, I thought to myself, well, Maud Infernal, Selene and Slimecraw would all be good options. And I thought to myself, right, there are boss fights in this game, there's some little mobs that need to be killed, and the thing that's going to speed it up the most is having single target burst. If you're in a trial and the fight's going long, then overall for the course of that fight, Maud Infernal is probably going to be far superior because it's going to just add that much more damage. But there's two reasons why I went for Selene's in the end, because first of all, I think burst is going to be better, especially if you have to kill like a weak mob and just basically almost like 2-tap him and keep running. Selene's is going to be far more beneficial than Maw. And also I thought to myself, because Maw actually is a pet, there may be situations where it interferes and aggroes enemies where you wouldn't, in a way you couldn't fully control within the route of the run. So I opted for Selene's, and I'm going for single target over AoE, although obviously I know there's going to be some fights where I'm fighting multiple targets, so I have got some AoE skills as well. So let's look at the full build. Orc, Nightblade, I've gone for Lava Mundus without any teammates. Being able to boost my damage through penetration seems like a good choice to me. 64 points into stamina. Weapon damage is not that high, but it's not low either. It's just over 4.5k weapon damage. Stam recovery is plenty. Max stam is plenty. Health is plenty, but you're not going to be challenged too much on that front. And Magicka is enough for cloaks and heals. As I said before, I opted for Selene's. That burst, that you hit something, and when you start a fight, it will be the first tap, predictably. It's guaranteed that 1.3 seconds later the bear is going to add almost 9k before crits on top of that, speeding up the burst, and it can happen every 6 seconds. So it's on fights that do go longer than a couple of seconds, it's going to be stacking up. I wanted to have a little bit of weapon damage and some more pen, so I went with Spriggans for the 5-piece body set. And as I said before, Adept Rider is going to give major expedition at all times, giving that 30% boost. It's a very easy speedrun overall, but that little bit extra protection just gives you the confidence to think, okay, so nothing's going to happen by accident. Obviously a very, very skillful player would avoid that anyway. For the weapons, I've gone with dual wield. I think in the end I went with sharpened, actually. Yeah, so giving this overall 17k pen, just for being able to kill enemies as quickly as possible. And on the back bar, I'd love to have the Maelstrom two-handed weapon here, but it's DLC. You need Orsinium DLC in order to acquire that. So within the rules of the category, best one I can go for is the Master's Maul. We do have Cleave for when we need to take on more than one enemy, and that's just going to add some damage onto that. Again, sharpened with a weapon damage enchant, which will be applied when I use the two-handed weapon abilities. So on the front bar, we've got Relentless Focus. Being a sort of predominantly PvP player, I tend to think of this as like a finisher, but it's for such a small cost, and you're going to be, as long as you're light attacking in between each skills, every 5 light attacks being able to do another big chunk of damage is decent. And the increased duration versus Merciless Resolve is just going to help with this run because it's so combat light. Having that 1 minute duration is really nice. Single target spammable, rapid strikes, nothing special there. Executability and AoE ability, Whirling Blades. Concealed weapon, as I said, predominantly for the minor expedition, but also when you come out of invisibility, your damage is increased by 10% for 5 seconds, and it's a magic skill with a decent amount of damage. So if I am running low on stam, I can spam this a couple of times. The reason I've got a heal in the front bar is purely because as Vampire Stage 4 and running as fast as possible, and there might be times where I run off a cliff and survive the full damage, and I just want to be able to get myself very quickly back up to full to make no mistakes happen. Yes, there's leeching strikes, which means that my light attacks will heal me and help me with my sustain, but it's useful having this as well, and it's really low cost for what it does. Just over 12.5k health for under 3k magicka. On the back bar, snare removal and source of major brutality is forward momentum. No need for the rally heal. Stampede, which is like an AoE dot. It's always a crit as well, which is good. Carve for AoE spammable, and also it applies a dot even in single target situations. And for those times when it's better than straightforward vampire invisibility, the shadowy disguise will help, and it guarantees a crit when you use it while you're invisible. Ultimates, shooting star for burst and small dot and generating ultimate, and incapacitating strike. So then you've got 2 options for that really. And that's the build. We'll see how it does, and I think it's decent overall. I'm not sacrificing any movement speed, and I've still got decent stats, decent recovery, and decent weapon damage. The critical is low, but again that matters more in longer fights. We've got the burst from Celine's, from the Relentless Focus with a decent executability, and a nice cheap ultimate which does a ton of damage. So hopefully it will do the job.